As always, I perform hand hygiene as soon as I walked in the room. All I had was an IV bag, but usually I'd be grabbing 2 patient identifiers right now since we're giving him medication today. So it's important to keep in mind at this point we've already performed 2 of our checks for the medication that we'll be giving today. I try to do a little look over of my line, make sure everything is closed that I want closed or open that I want open. I definitely want the roller pen to be closed. There will be 2 times that you spike a bag throughout this whole process. It's important to keep in mind here that there is a high risk for infection at this point. So keeping fingertips clear and removing those caps consciously and knowing what you're doing there. Now that everything is hooked up and hung, we're going to prime the line. So we're going to squeeze a little ball there, get a few drips into the chamber, and then slowly going to open up this roller pin here and let this IV fluid through. When priming the tubing, the goal is to let the IV fluid out slowly and try to minimize as many air bubbles as you can. If you do get any bubbles coming up, usually you can just flick them out until they rise to the top. Right here, towards the middle of the tubing, I noticed some bubbles, so just going to go at those and flick them out. But other than that, this one went through relatively easily. Once I got the fluid all the way to the top, it's fully been primed, and I'm going to close the roller pin so no more comes out. Next, hooking all this up to the patient's IV already in their vein. We are also going to do a saline flush for this patient, just to make sure that that line is still good before we start administering anything in there. Hooking up the IV and this flush need to be a sterile technique. So if there isn't a blue cap on something, make sure to wipe it down with an antibiotic wipe and make sure that everything is completely sterile. Now is the time to hook up the piggyback. It's important to remember that this is the medication. This is why we need to do triple checks, and this is also why we also need to do the 7 patient rights here, because this is a med. So you're going to spike it just the same way that you do with the primary bag, making sure to close that roller clamp first, because like we said, this is a med. This is important. They need to get all of that. And just another reminder to be aware of your technique while you're poking the bag, not to spread any infection. Now I grab the roller clamp because everything is all set up. I feel comfortable to open that up again. And nothing really goes in there, which is a good sign, because to prime this tubing for this IV piggyback, all I need to do is hold it lower than the primary bag, and you can see the fluid going in there right there. And that's how we're going to make sure that there are no air bubbles going into that line. And now that all the lines are set up, all we have left to do is to set the computer, let that know how fast it needs to go. So I know that this IV needs to go in at 20 milliliters per hour. So we're going to set that there, and we're going to set the limit just a little bit smaller than the bag, so we have time to switch that out. And then we are going to set the drip rate for the secondary or the piggyback, and that's going to be going at 100 milliliters an hour, so a little bit faster there. And this is what you love to see. The piggyback is now rolling, got its drips flowing down there, so that means that we set everything up and it's all good to go. Well, now that I know how to hang an IV, I'm gonna go document this, perform a little hand hygiene for the road, say goodbye to my patient,
and I'm out.